Hey guys, what's up? Today we have a massive roadmap update. We have new ships attainable in-game, including the Idris, which was surprising to me. We also got a massive engineering design doc that goes through every single detail regarding engineering. All that and more in today's video. Starting with the roadmap update. Now, the first card added was the loot refresh. Now, this rebalances all the loot at various sandbox locations and introduces previously Wikelo exclusive rewards to the loot pool. So now you can find Wikelo rewards in the normal loot boxes. Not all of them, of course. A massive, I would say, overhaul to the ship tuning for snub fighters and interceptors. Now, this changes all the SEM and nav speeds, the acceleration, the angular speed, the rotation rates, the health, and racing ship performances. These ships include the Mirai Fury with all its variants, Origin 85X, Kruger P52 and P72, Mirai Razor with all its variants, Origin M50, Aegis Avenger series, the Origin 300 series, and these are the ships that are stated to have all of these changes. So if you fly a ship that is small and fast, it will feel completely different. I think they're overhauling the snub fighters and interceptors, how they completely play. So we're gonna have to test this out. The next thing is Wikelo is adding various new ships, which we're going to talk about in a moment, alongside a rebalance of the effort required to earn these rewards. So for the new ships added to Wikelo are the Aegis Idris, which has a lot of people talking about it because some people are pissed that now it is attainable in-game because they bought it with real money. But I think that CIG always said that all of the ships and the components and whatever they're selling on the website is one way or another going to be attainable in-game, either via AUEC or through Wikelo, for example, or completed the contested zones, which we're going to talk in a bit, because you could now get a ship from those contested zones. So I don't see the argument why people are upset about this. I mean, it's going to be like very extremely difficult, and I would assume requires a massive org to even grind for this ship. So it's yes, it is attainable in game, but it's going to be extremely difficult. And if it's not, then we could talk about that's a problem. That's the Aegis Idris coming to Wikelo. We also have the Anvil Asgard, Prospector, the Argo Raft, and the Kruger L21 Wolf. Each comes with upgraded components and a unique base livery. And there's more. The military variant of the Kruger L21 Wolf can be unlocked by completing all the Wikelo ship contracts, which good luck with that. So yeah, Wikelo is basically becoming a full-on grind. Alright, for the contested zones, we have a new ship attainable from completing these contested zones. We have the RSI Meteor. Finish a zone, unlock the exclusive hangar, and you can get access to this ship. This is a massive reward for people who like PvP and PvE hybrid content. Now, that was just the roadmap update, but now we're gonna get through the engineering design document. Now, if you want to read the whole thing, I'm going to link it in the description below, but I'm gonna try to make it as simple as possible and summarize it for you so you would know what are you getting yourself into when engineering comes in. So let's break it down. So with Alpha 4.5, it introduces the engineering gameplay, armor, and fire hazard. These interconnected systems fundamentally change how you interact with and maintain your spacecraft, and represent some of the most significant ship gameplay changes affecting nearly every ship in the game. Now, in my previous video, I first thought that it was going to be the 80 ships that was in the tech preview, but no, this is coming to all ships. And what happens if you don't have an engineering panel? Well, we're going to talk about that. So the goal for engineering gameplay is to enable ships to perform approximately as well as they did in 4.4 in combat and survivability, but personally I would argue that it's even better than in 4.4 because you cannot die easily in this patch, depending of course on the ship you are attacking. So if you're going against a Polaris or an Idris, if you're a small ship, then you're gonna find it very difficult to go against these ships, but we're gonna talk about this more in a second. So the Engineering and Resource Network. This system creates dedicated gameplay roles for engineers aboard multi-crew ships and will also provide solo pilots with new depth in ship maintenance and combat survivability. Again, if you watched my previous video, I had a good time messing with my ship components. Now, what does engineering encompass? So engineering encompasses power management, component health monitoring, damage repair, fire suppression, which we're going to talk about more, and system prioritization. Understanding these interconnected systems is essential for keeping your ship operational during and after combat, even in exploration and everyday flight. Tuning is very important because if you're not tuning your ship, your wear and tear is going to be high for no reason. Like, why would you have your weapons on, for example, if you're just exploring a planet? So for the multi-crew engineering gameplay, now the engineer role. On larger vessels, dedicated engineers will be imperative to keeping your ship ready during and in between encounters. Extending the life of your ship is one of your engineer's main goals through various tasks, including monitoring the ship's status during combat, prioritizing repair tasks, managing power distribution, and fighting fires all around the ship, and replacing and fixing components, and also fuses. This will include decision making for what emergencies to prioritize over another. As the engineer, you will have the tools at your disposal to give information about your ship's current status to all members of your crew, starting with the engineering screen. So let's talk about it. The ASOP engineering screen is the primary interface for monitoring and managing ship systems. This screen provides a comprehensive view of all ship components, their health status, power distribution, and system alerts. So let's talk about how you would access engineering. Either your ship is equipped for engineering or if it doesn't have the dedicated screen. So the engineering screen can be accessed from a dedicated engineering station on larger ships or more modern ships, and on the co-pilot seats on smaller vessels. Now this is for non-physicalized ships, and MFD's panels throughout your ship. This is how you're going to access engineering, like a ship that doesn't have a dedicated engineering section. Now, the interface elements. Now, the engineering screen, we've seen it before. I'm going to go through it just briefly. It shows you a 3D schematic of the whole ship, all the components, all its connections, and how much does each component health has, whether it's overheating, does it have wear and tear, does it need repair, etc. Now, the color state indicators. So this is what the color means. So, or if your component is between 150 health range, it's going to look as green. If it's below 50%, it's going to look as yellow. If it's below 20%, it's going to look red. Now, if it's white, that means it's completely destroyed and it's as 0 health. Important, the current yellow threshold triggers at 99%. That's what we were seeing in the PTU, so that's supposed to change. Now, the room system also shows that the fire status. So if you have a room that is on fire, it should be displayed in your MFD for the engineering terminal, and it should show you the fire status, atmospheric conditions, and the loss of atmosphere for each room in the ship. Note that this can create significant information clutter on larger vessels, so they're gonna have to tune this out. I didn't really see it, maybe because I didn't see the fire when it happens, but I would assume it shows a lot of information that you need to filter when you're using the screen. And you also have presets, so you could have a preset for exploration. You don't have to change it every single time. You can have a preset for combat, etc. So now for the big one, the ship components. Now there are categories for ship components. Let's talk about it. So now the ships contain various components organized into functional categories. So understanding each type is critical for effective engineering. Let's talk about power generation. So power plants' function is to generate electricity power for all ships. These are of the critical importance. If the ship power plant reaches 0 health, the ship has a chance to explode, and you're gonna hear sirens going all across the ship telling you you are going to explode if you don't do something about it. This is better than just completely being soft death or exploded before we got engineering. So this would actually give you a chance to not be soft death if you can repair it on time and put off the fire. Now, key behaviors. Power plant failure triggers a self-destruct sequence with a timer based on the power plant. So if you have a better power plant, you're going to have a longer time to react to be able to fix the ship before it goes critical. This can be repaired with a multi-tool once critical, so it's not going to be completely destroyed. Power plants going critical at 90% health without warning is a known issue. Something to keep in mind in the current PTU. Now, the thermal management. The coolers dissipate heat generated by weapons, thrusters, and other systems. What happens when it fails? Weapons and systems overheat faster and may shut down automatically, which we saw in my previous video. The shield generators overheated and thus were not even working, even if they didn't cause a fire or like got damaged. It just didn't work because it was overheating. Now, the key behaviors. Some ships have multiple coolers to provide redundancy. Damaged coolers reduce heat dissipation capacity proportionally. Now, for the defense systems, of course, the shield generation. These provide energy shields to absorb incoming damage. What happens when it fails? The ship hull takes direct damage from all attacks, which we're going to talk about this more because now we have armor. Now, the key behaviors for the ship generators, multiple shield generators share the shield pool. Damage generators reduce shield capacity and regeneration. A shield can have a max of 2 shields active at the same time, with the third behind a reserve that is turned on once you lose one of your main shield generators. Note that shield state is currently not visible on engineering screen. So from my understanding, you have 2 main shield generators. If you have a third one, it's a redundant one. So if one dies, you'll have a third as a reserve. This is what I understand from this. Let's keep going. The navigation and detection. So the quantum drive enable quantum travel between locations. What happens when it fails? It cannot perform quantum jumps. Jump drives currently cannot be repaired. It's a known bug, requires replacement if destroyed, but they're gonna work on it. So the radar function detects ships, of course, signatures, and point of interest. If it fails, it reduces or no sensor capability at all. Now, the radar is frequently damaged in combat, fragile, because it is fragile, yes, and may require multiple repairs during or between extended engagements, which let me know what you guys think about that, because if the radar is damaged, by this it says that it is easily damaged. The radar is one of the most important components, because if you can't target the ship, then how are you going to attack it? So you're forced to go fix the radar multiple times before you attack the ship, which I don't know about that. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. So for the propulsion, you have the main thrusters, which provides acceleration for the ship. If it fails, it reduces acceleration capacity. So you're still going to be able to move, it's just your acceleration is going to be very slow. For the maneuvering thrusters, they provide attitude control and lateral movement. If they fail, loss of specific directional control. So you're going to have maybe like a torque imbalance. Now, the retro thrusters, they provide deceleration thrust. So if they break, you're going to have reduced braking capability. Now, individual thruster damage is very granular, and lost thrusters can cause uncontrollable flight, which we've seen this multiple times. Now, thruster status currently not visible on the engineering screen, considered too fragile to the current balance. Now for the life support. Now, I'm very curious about this one. So the life support functions, it maintains breathable atmosphere, controls room temperature, and filters containment. So it not only adds in breathing, it also controls the temperature, because I turned off the life support thinking that it was just deemed the room not breathable, but it also increased the temperature. So not only the cooler can do that, and we're gonna have to test that more. Now, if the life support fails, you have a loss of atmosphere quality control. The life support filters smoke from the air. Currently too slow, but it should filters out the smoke in the room. Now, this can be damage affecting atmosphere quality, contains replaceable filter sub items. This is very cool. So that means that if your room is smoking, which I have seen in my previous video, when the room was getting hot, you could actually see that it's getting foggy, or like you can see like it's getting a little bit, not clear. That means smoke is being built up in the room. So the life support should filter this. And they say it's too slow right now, but it should go faster later on. And once if you have a lot of smoke, you can swap out the filter containers later on. So these are just not there yet, but it's extremely cool that that's their plan, and makes perfect sense. Now, the door system. The door hologram shows color-coded holographic doors throughout the ship based on nominal, which is blue, offline, which is gray, warning or locked, which is yellow, and if it's critical broken, it's red. So these were the ship components overview. There's still more, guys. This is a massive report. Now, going to the power distribution and management. How does power get distributed among those components? Let's take a look. So every ship has a finite power budget, which is the pips that we have. This power must be distributed among all the ships, shields, weapon, thrusters, life support, and other various systems. Managing this power distribution can be a job unto itself, and prioritizing certain systems over another in tense situations could affect the survival of your ship and crew, which I've kind of tested in the PTU, and it's like, You want to prioritize the shields generation, or do you want to do more damage? Do you want to prioritize moving away from the ship, etc, etc? Now, from the engineering screen or the power MFD, there is a default power state for all ships that you as an engineer can prioritize systems. Emergency divert powers from non-essential systems and balance load to distribute power evenly for standard operation. So power changes when there is an emergency in the ship. In these systems, power is routed through capacitors that store energy for different system groups. So what are these capacitors? You have weapon capacitors, stores the energy for weapon systems. Depleted capacitors reduce the fire rate for disabled weapons. We also have shield capacitors. These store energy for shield generators. Depleted capacitors can slow the healed recovery. We also have thruster capacitors that store energy for propulsion systems. Currently affects the ship boost. They say that currently, we don't know what will happen later on. Now, for the fuses and relay, the fuses act as protective devices between the power plant and individual components. Keeping plenty of these in quick reach of your engineer is imperative for continued operations. So we need to hoard fuses, guys. The fuse location and relay systems. Fuses are installed in relay boxes throughout the ship, which we've seen multiple times. Ships vary in the number and location of relay boxes. While most small ships have between 1 or 2 relay locations, medium and larger ships can have 3-4 relay locations or more. Losing all fuses inside a relay will cause immediate loss of power of the ship. Now, we have to test this because I think it doesn't necessarily mean the complete loss of power. I think there is a little bit of nuance to this, but we'll see. So about the fuse health and identifying damaged fuses. So damaged fuses appear on the engineering screen or will be visible destroyed within the relay box visibly. To replace these, the player must first locate the damaged fuse, open the relay box and remove the damaged fuse, and then replace it with a new one from the inventory. Current limitations. There is no use from inventory feature. Must be physically held in hand. So that would be amazing if you could just, if you have it in your inventory, then I should have a button that tells me you can pull it out from the backpack and put it in. But we don't have that right now. But from this, they plan on putting it in. Now for the big one, guys, the armor. Alright, finally, this is a massive report, guys. So armor penetration mechanic. Well, weapons have a penetration value, 1 meter for a size 3 ballistic Gatling, for example. So the amount they penetrate depends on the current armor percentage, penetration cone, impact radius, and distance radius all affect area on penetration. So what does this mean? This means that when you shoot at a target, it depends on what angle it is you are aiming at, what is the radius of your impact from like the weapon that you're using, and what is the distance? Are you further away? Are you closer? This would also affect what damage you're doing to the armor, etc. Now there's a linear progression. As you reduce the armor, penetration increase linearly. At 0% armor, weapons penetrate at their maximum value. So this means that as you attack a ship, you are lowering the damage mitigation basically that you're doing to the ship. Now, if the armor reaches 0, then your damage is at maximum value. I hope this makes sense. The weapon types matter. Ballistic weapons are less effective against armor compared to energy weapons, which do 1.4 normal damage to armor. I was expecting the opposite. So the ballistic weapons are less effective against armor, but the energy weapons are more effective against armor? I thought it was the other way around. That was interesting. So what about the damages? How do we damage the components? Because that's the whole purpose of armor. So penetration is checked within a cone, not just a straight line. If a component is within the cone, it takes damage based on the penetration value and armor percentage. This means that if you hit a target, it has a certain cone for your weapon. So if the component is within this cone, it will take damage. It doesn't have to be a direct physical hit by the bullet. So it takes damage based on the penetration value and armor percentage. Let's talk about breaking the armor. So even smaller weapons can eventually wear down armor over time, but larger weapons penetrate deeper and faster. So that there's going to be a huge rebalancing of all of the ships, and multiple YouTubers and content creators also went through all of that, but it's literally hundreds and hundreds of changes and numbers that will also probably change over time. So it's a really massive update, guys. Let's talk about an example scenario just to understand the whole armor thing. So if you use a size 2 weapon against a ship with full armor, you won't penetrate. But as you keep firing and reduce the armor, you'll start to penetrate and eventually damage internal components. After the armor is reduced, of course. Now, for capital ships, you may need larger weapons to reach deeply buried components. So larger weapons has a harder or like a bigger effect on actually damaging the components. You cannot die unless you got through the armor. Only then can you damage the components, because you cannot explode or die without the components getting damaged. So that's very interesting, or that's how I put it in my head. Now, the armor bar improvements. There are ongoing efforts to fix bugs and make armor health more transparent to players, because yeah, in the PTU I did not understand what was happening, because it says that the armor is 0 even though the armor should be there. Like, I took a long time for the components to be damaged. The penetration cone. The system uses a cone to check for penetration, so it's not just a single bullet path. Multiple components can be affected within the cone, so they should give us an idea whether or not we're hitting the target. Giving information about the current state of armor of your ship and your target is just as meaningful as self-status of shields and other systems. So this includes the information that we should get with the armor, the health pool of the armor, current effects, thickness, the current value modified by the health ratio and the curve, feedback for shots including aiming, reticle or pip provides piercing, not piercing but damaged, or not damaging the armor meaningfully. So an indication of what we're doing when we're hitting an enemy. We also should need information about the shop descriptions. It describes armor relevant properties of the entities: guns, FPS vehicles, penetration, armor, damage multiplier, vehicle default, armor thickness, etc. Massive stuff, guys. We're gonna get more information on today's ISC, which I'm going to also cover. Now, we have the damage status and component health. So how do we know, or what we should know, if the component is damaged or not? We know what happens when it fails, but how do we know that it's even damaged? We've talked about this briefly, but let's take a deeper look on it. So the components can be damaged through various ship weapons, obviously fire penetration, hull shields, collision impacts with other objects or terrain, overheating when operating beyond thermal limits, and fire damages. Alright, so let's talk about the health percentage system. Component health threshold will quickly hinder your ship, and keeping components repaired is essential to keep full ship performance. We have 175% health, the components will be at full performance. This is different than the color indicator that we talked about before, guys. This talks about what is the performance of the component at each stage of its physical damage. Alright, so from 100% to 75%, the component will be at full performance. Between 75 and 50%, there would be minor performance degradation. Between 75 and 50% health, minor performance degradation will happen. Between 50 and 25%, significant performance reduction. Between 25 and 10%, severely reduced performance, and from 10% to 1%, near failure performance. So essentially, if the component is like very damaged, it's not going to be performing well. So it is very critical for you to keep the components within 100 to 75. This means that as an engineer, it's not your priority to just repair the item if it's destroyed. You need to maintain it between the threshold of 100 and 75% if you want the full performance of the component. Now, of course, if it reaches 0%, then it's critically destroyed and non-functional, where power plants will go into critical state and thermal runaway. What about the hull? What happens when it takes damage? So the hull section have their own health pool that is separate from the armor. There's a known issue right now that once hull sections turn red, they stop registering hit markers. So much damage entire ship to critical before destruction. This creates confusion about whether attacks are landing. So it's a known issue that they have to fix. What about distortion damage on the components? Distortion damage is a core damage type behavior. Does not cause any physical damage or harm directly. Distortion shuts down power entities, component hit by distortion type weapons, the power surge malfunctions, etc. Fill a distortion pool which decays over time. Distortion triggers if the pool fills completely, and this disappears if the pool decays below a recovery ratio. Current behavior components shut down. So what does all this talk means? It means that distortion damage will just shut down the component without doing any physical damage onto it. And the distortion triggers if the pool fills completely. So there's a pool that You know, when you keep doing distortion damage, it fills up. Once it is full, then the component completely shuts down without taking any physical damage. All right, are you guys with me so far? Let's talk about the wear system. How does wear and tear actually happen, and what is the difference between it and the damage state? So the engineering system distinguishes between those two types, the damage and the wear and tear. The damage is caused by combat or collisions or fires and direct actions against the component. These can be repaired and restored to a pre-damage state using multi-tools and materials. Materials, that's crafting, guys. But the wear and tear is accumulated through normal use over time and will gradually degrade maximum component performance. Wear damage cannot be repaired through multi-tool use, which means over time, the only way to restore functionality will be to replace the worn out component. High stress operations such as combat, high power usage, and environment explosions will all affect computer wear. Now, when I first read this, I thought, okay, so the only way to repair the component is to completely replace it, which means you cannot even repair it at the shop or like at the ground station, but that's not the case because they said that there's a critical wear and tear system issue because you cannot repair wear at any location. So that means that they're acknowledging that that's an issue and not a feature. Okay, so for the repair system, we've talked about the damages, different weapon types and how they damage the different components, but how will we repair them? Now, along with the engineering screens, the primary tools an engineer will use is the multi-tools and repair attachments. Using Repair Material Composite or RMC, an engineer can see component damages either by looking on the engineering screen or in person by aiming their repair tool at the component. By aiming your repair tool at the damaged item, such as a component or a ship hull, and yes, this means we can repair hulls as well, and holding the trigger, the player will be able to apply a repair beam that will take time based on component size. So larger components take larger time to heal. This could take quite a bit of time, but multiple players working multiple repair tools together can combine their power to speed up the process. So if you have multiple engineers or multiple people with the repair tool, you can actually repair components faster. So if a ship has more engineers, it is able to function better. That's very interesting. Now, there are some current repair limitations. The jump drive currently cannot be repaired. It's a known bug. There's also unknown parts. Some components appear on screen but cannot be located physically, so they have to fix that as well. Now, for the component replacement. Replacement will become necessary when the component is fully destroyed. Sometimes it cannot be fully repaired, or the component wear is too high for effective operation. This also applies to fuses or general upgrades you want to make with their higher quality parts. The replacement of components must match the exact slot size. Of course, that makes sense. You cannot put a size 3 in a size 1 component compartment. The replacement process for physicalized components is pretty straightforward. Physicalized ship removal: access the component bay location, interact with the component, and select the remove option. The component will then go to your local inventory or drop as a physical item. So you could also do this with the movie glass, which like we're always used to this. You can open the movie glass, you can remove the component and put back the component if the ship is stored. This also is working for non-physicalized ships. So some ships don't even have physicalized components. So also use the vehicle loadout manager at stations as these cannot be physically located or interacted with, sadly. The final thing. This has been a huge update, and we're going to get more information in today's Inside Star Citizen, which I'm going to cover. Finally, we're getting to the fire system overview. Now, heat is now a critical element for pilots and engineers to monitor. As components operate, they generate heat and raise their temperature, which we actually saw. Like, the room physically looked hot. Fume everywhere, there was a little bit of fog, and you could see like how the heat distorts the environment. We saw that, which was pretty cool in game. This creates a constant balancing act between cooling systems and managing performance. Cooling must be directed appropriately to keep components within safe operation limits while still supporting the needs of the ship. The longer a component runs at high temperature, the faster it would accumulate wear and reduces the efficiency by increasing the chance of failure. If a component overheats beyond safe threshold, it will trigger a thermal shutdown and stop functional until it cools down, which we've experienced that. Letting components run too hot also increases the risk of fire, which I've yet to see that. One of the most dangerous situations on a ship can face is fire can start due to overheating, malfunctions, or direct damage. Engineer must respond quickly using fire extinguishers or by venting a room to remove oxygen and suppress the flames. Now, how does this fire behave? Because it is a little bit wonky in the PTU, but let's see. So accident Moments happen, and sometimes staying on top of the heat management is not possible with your engineer non-operational. And now your ship has caught fire. Fires can occur when components take damage and overheat, fuel lines are breached. That is very interesting. What does that even mean? Fuel lines are breached? Interesting. Electrical systems short circuit, or external weapons, of course, ignite flammable materials. Now, these fires will need to be contained or risk spread throughout the ship, damaging and destroying your hard-earned loot, components, nested vehicles, and crew. Fires throughout your ship will also generate realistic smoke, significantly reducing visibility. Life support system will gradually scrub the atmosphere in a room to remove the smoke once the fire is contained. The engineer screen and ship will provide visual and audio alerts when fire is detected. Visual indicators on room map along with location-based fire warnings. Now, how do you suppress the fire? Let's talk about it. So the fire suppression. There are multiple ways to help stop the spread of fire and remove it. Using the supply of fire extinguishers around the ship might be your first choice. These FPS items will allow your crew to hit the fire directly at the source. These extinguishers have a limited resource stored inside them and will need to be recharged by replacing back onto their rack in the ship when not in use. We also know that you can vent the room, and if you vent the room, then the fires will stop spreading and will be extinguished. So yeah, that was the roadmap roundup and the engineering design document. That was plenty of information. That was information overload. We're gonna have more information in today's Inside Star Citizen, which I'm also gonna cover. And I want to hear your guys' thoughts about this. Do you like engineering? Do you like how they implement it? Do you have any suggestions for some systems to be better? What do you guys think of the Idris being in game? I know a lot of people don't like it, and a lot of people do like it because now they can earn the very most like aggressive ship in the game and not have to buy it on the shop. So let me know what you guys think about that. And all right, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe because it really helps me a lot, and I'll see you in the verse.